When you think of China, maybe you picture the futuristic skyline of Shanghai. Towering glass buildings, neon lights, and a city that never seems to sleep. It's a place where innovation is everywhere, and the pace of life is relentless, with millions of people moving through the city's bustling streets every day. Or perhaps you imagine the country's famous bullet trains, racing across vast distances at breathtaking speeds, connecting megacities and remote towns in a matter of hours. These trains are a symbol of China's rapid modernization and its ambition to lead the world in technology and infrastructure. In these urban centers, life feels like it's unfolding in the future. People are glued to their smartphones, cashless payments are the norm, and the city lights create a dazzling spectacle every night. It's easy to believe that China is a country where anything is possible, but beyond the city limits, there's another China, one that's often overlooked. In rural villages, time seems to slow down. Here, daily life revolves around the land, the changing seasons, and the struggle to make ends meet. Concerns are more basic: harvests, poverty, and for many, a deep and growing sense of isolation. In these quiet places, the young have left for the promise of city jobs, leaving behind an aging population and a surplus of men who have little hope of finding someone to marry. The empty homes and lonely streets tell a story of dreams deferred and families divided. This isn't just a social problem, it's a crisis that has given rise to a shadowy underworld. Human trafficking, kidnappings, and forced marriages have become grim realities for some, as desperation drives people to unthinkable acts. The consequences ripple through entire communities, leaving scars that may never heal. While one part of China is launching rockets and building space stations, another is trapped in a struggle that feels centuries old, a stark contrast between progress and pain, hope and hardship. This hidden crisis exposes deep inequalities and the human cost of unchecked policies and cultural traditions. It's a story of people left behind, of voices that are rarely heard, and of a society grappling with the consequences of its own rapid transformation. And it all came to light when a single horrifying video clip tore the curtain down for everyone to see, forcing a nation and the world to confront the reality that progress can sometimes leave the most vulnerable behind. How did China end up with men literally buying women? The answer is rooted in decades of policy, tradition, and unintended consequences that have shaped the lives of millions. This is a story not just about numbers, but about real people, about families, hopes, and heartbreak. It starts with a devastating gender imbalance, a gap so wide it's visible in every corner of rural China. For every 100 girls born, there are now far more boys, and the effects ripple through society. Thanks to decades of the one-child policy, which limited most families to a single child, and a deep-rooted cultural preference for sons, China now has nearly 35 million more men than women. That's more than the entire population of some countries, millions of men with no hope of finding a wife. In rural areas, the problem is even worse. Young women, seeking better opportunities, leave for the cities, chasing education and jobs. The men, meanwhile, are left behind, bare branches on the family tree, with little hope of marriage or starting a family of their own. This desperation creates a market. Traffickers prey on vulnerable women from poorer regions or neighboring countries, luring or kidnapping them. For many, the promise of work or a better life turns into a nightmare of captivity. These women are sold for a few $1,000s to families desperate for a bride. The transactions are secretive, but the consequences are painfully public. Their humanity erased, they become property, forced to bear children and serve families they never chose. Many live under constant surveillance, isolated from their own families and stripped of their freedom. The gender gap isn't just a statistic. It's the engine behind a brutal underground economy. Trafficking, forced marriage, and exploitation thrive where hope has vanished. In the cities, women have more choices, more freedom, and more power over their own lives. But in the countryside, the shortage is a crisis, one that tears at the fabric of entire communities. Where there's demand, traffickers supply, turning human lives into commodities. Law enforcement struggles to keep up, and the cycle continues. This is the dark reality behind China's demographic time bomb, a crisis that's reshaping the country, one stolen life at a time. For years, bride trafficking was an open secret in rural China, whispered about but rarely confronted. It was a shadow that lingered in the background, ignored by most, and dismissed as an unfortunate reality of life in the countryside. The authorities looked the other way, and the rest of the country barely noticed. Then, in January 2022, everything changed. A viral video shattered the silence. A woman, chained by the neck in a freezing shed, dazed and unable to speak, became the face of a national horror. Her image was raw and haunting, impossible to ignore. She was the mother of 8 children, her suffering hidden in plain sight for years. Neighbors had seen her, but no one had truly seen her pain. Her story was a silent scream, echoing through the villages. The video spread like wildfire, racking up billions of views and igniting outrage across China. It was shared in group chats, reposted on every platform, and discussed in hushed tones and heated debates alike. People demanded answers. Who was she? Where was her family? How could this happen to someone in their own backyard? How could this happen in modern China, a country racing toward the future, yet haunted by such medieval cruelty? The contrast between gleaming cities and rural suffering was suddenly impossible to ignore. The image of the chained woman became a symbol of a deep sickness in society, a wound that could no longer be hidden beneath the surface. Artists, activists, and ordinary citizens all seized on her image, demanding justice. The public outcry was deafening, drowning out even the Beijing Winter Olympics. For a moment, the world's attention shifted from gold medals to a single woman's suffering. This wasn't just online anger, it was a national reckoning. People from all walks of life, from students to grandparents, joined the chorus of outrage. Citizens became detectives, poking holes in official statements, sharing evidence, and refusing to let the story die. Online forums buzzed with theories and new discoveries. The viral video had kicked over a hornet's nest, and the swarm was angry. The outrage was relentless, and the demand for truth grew louder by the day. The truth could no longer be hidden. The nation was awake, and the world was watching. When the scandal broke, local officials scrambled to control the narrative. Their first statement denied trafficking, blaming mental illness and calling it a family matter. The public didn't buy it. If she was ill, why was she chained in a shed? Why 8 children? Officials released statement after statement, each contradicting the last, eroding public trust. It looked less like an investigation and more like a cover-up. Under national pressure, higher authorities stepped in. The truth emerged. The woman, Xiao Huamei, had been abducted from Yunnan in 1998 and sold multiple times before ending up in that shed. The official admission was a victory for public pressure and a damning indictment of local authorities. The system had protected perpetrators, not victims. Why does this keep happening? It's a mix of isolation, silence, and weak laws. In remote villages, community ties are everything. Reporting a neighbor brings shame, so people stay silent, even when they know a woman is chained up next door. For years, buying a trafficked person carried little penalty, sometimes less than buying an endangered animal. This sends a clear message. Human life is cheap. Victims, often from poor regions, are cut off from family and support, unable to escape or even communicate. Abuse, repeated pregnancies, and isolation break their spirit. The law offers little protection, and the community shields the perpetrators. This perfect storm, geographic isolation, cultural silence, weak laws, and victim vulnerability, lets these atrocities continue, hidden in plain sight. Xiao Huamei's case is not unique. It's a symptom of a much deeper crisis. Until these root causes are addressed, the cycle will continue. In the past, this story would have been buried. But in 2022, social media changed everything. On Weibo, millions dissected official statements, shared evidence, and demanded justice. Hashtags about the chained woman trended for weeks, drowning out government propaganda. The case became a symbol of systemic misogyny and the vulnerability of women. The sheer volume of outrage forced authorities to act. But censorship soon followed. Posts deleted, hashtags blocked, accounts suspended. Journalists and activists were harassed or detained. Still, people found ways to keep the story alive, inventing new hashtags and sharing coded messages. The government's message was clear: be angry online, but don't organize in real life. Despite repression, public pressure exposed a truth the authorities tried to hide. It was a powerful, if temporary, victory for citizen activism. After months of outrage, the case went to court. Dong Jimin, who chained Xiao Huamei and fathered 8 children with her, got 9 years in prison. Others involved in her trafficking got 8 to 13 years. On paper, justice was served, but the public was furious. 9 years for decades of cruelty? It felt like a slap on the wrist. Many pointed out that hunting a rare bird could get you a longer sentence. The court avoided charging Dong with rape, calling it abuse instead. The verdict felt like a political solution, not real justice. For many, the fight for Xiao Huamei and countless others was far from over. After the trial, the government hoped the story would fade. But activists refused to let it die. Open protest became too dangerous, so the movement went underground. Encrypted chats, quiet documentation, and international outreach. Feminist groups tracked new cases, compiled evidence, and sent reports to organizations like the UN. In May 2023, UN experts raised the case with Chinese officials, showing the impact of this underground network. Activists face constant surveillance, harassment, and risk to their families and careers. Yet they persist, believing silence is complicity. New cases continue to surface, quickly censored, but never fully erased. The fight is slow and dangerous, but essential. These activists are the keepers of the flame, ensuring the world doesn't forget. The crisis is ongoing, and the struggle for justice continues. 4 years later, Xiao Huamei remains in a medical facility, her future uncertain. The systemic issues, gender imbalance, poverty, silence, persist. The government has promised reforms, but the core problem remains. The story of the chained woman isn't just about China. It's about what happens when people are treated as commodities and silence is chosen over justice. It's a reminder that even in tightly controlled societies, truth can break through. Public outcry forced action, however imperfect. That's why we must keep talking about it, not to point fingers, but to support the global fight for human dignity. Sharing her story signals to activists that they're not alone and reminds governments the world is watching. In our connected world, attention is a form of pressure, the goal. A world where no woman is chained for decades while the world looks away. That starts with refusing to look away now.